Hello, everybody. We are going to be continuing our conversation about relationships. Today, hopefully, everybody has seen the previous video. And in the previous video, to kind of sum it up for somebody who doesn't remember or missed it or watching me elsewhere, we were discussing if there was such a thing as a normal relationship. And we have come to a conclusion that normal relationships do exist. It's actually not a matter of opinion. There is an objective concept of a normal relationship. And I promise that today we're going to define what that normal is. But what we've discussed in the previous video is what a normal relationship is not. And so it's not a perfect relationship to where you have no fights, where you're constantly in love, where you're constantly happy, when you have no problems. So those do not exist. There's no perfection in this world. And so normal relationship and perfect relationship are not, not the same thing. Another thing that we've discussed about normal relationships is that normal usually feels normal, with few exceptions. So it's not like somebody telling you, well, gee, this is normal and this isn't normal, but it's more from within. Your normal relationship will feel normal to you. With few exceptions, as we've mentioned, that there are abusive relationships, and there are some women in abusive relationships who will tell you that's normal for me, when it's in actuality not normal. And the reason for those is we've discussed, a lot of it to blame is what I termed the spirit of our public opinion, is that we tend to not encourage the evaluation of what that relationship is alongside of normal versus not normal. The going trend is kind of like, well, whatever goes, which is incorrect, because instead of teaching us to listen to those small emotional signals that emotional intelligence sends to us and trying to evaluate things and correct them if necessary, the tendency is more to justify whatever it goes because, it could potentially just be my opinion because there is no absolutes here. And when we do that, sometimes we put way too much effort into justifying that, and pretty soon we basically don't know what's normal. And pretty soon abnormal starts feeling normal. So that is something that I encourage everybody who listens to me to consciously take a note of and consciously avoid and undo, because it's very important to know what is good for you. Normal is good for you, and that's what we need to focus on, because it's about our success, it's about our happiness, and if we follow the instructions, then our chances for success are a lot higher. And before we transition into the promised discussion of how do you define a normal relationship, I want to talk about something else of what a normal relationship is not, something that we didn't cover in the previous discussion. And what triggered me to that is that I answer questions on Quora. So by the way, those of you who are watching, and this is your hint of where you can get free advice, because I do answer questions on Quora. And so this question there comes up, and so somebody is asking about being happy. And their question was for, I think they hit up, quite a few people besides me, and they're saying, hey, do you consider yourself happy and wanting nothing? And I was totally floored by the amount of answers of people are saying, yeah, I'm totally happy. All my needs are met. I really don't want anything else. I don't want, I'm, full and complete. I don't have any wants or needs or anything like that. So I'm going to apply this concept to the discussion of a normal relationship. But first, I want to ask you guys as far as that question. And the statements is like, yeah, hey, I'm happy. And since I'm happy, that means I want nothing more. Would you agree with that? Is that fair to say that happiness means you have reached a state where you're perfectly content and want nothing?
I mean, yes, I'd say so. I don't see anything wrong with the answers. I think that's how happiness is defined. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I think happiness has always been defined as wanting nothing, as they put it in literature.
Yes.
I kind of object to that. Not really object, but it's just that I'm not sure. Is it even possible, to achieve a place in life where all your needs and wants are met? That definitely doesn't sound like reality.
Well, it doesn't to me either, but that's what they're saying. That's what they're claiming where they're at. And so, yes, I am completely happy with my life and I don't want anything else. That's what they're saying. So do you think they're lying, or why are they saying that?
Trick question.
Definitely. Yes, definitely a trick question.
Okay, so my take on things is that they're saying that just because, like Caroline was saying, isn't that what happiness is defined? Always like when you want nothing, then you've achieved a state of happiness. Kind of like, current spirit of public opinion, or egregore, as the term that I use. But think about it. If you are at an emotional state when you have no dreams, when you have no goals to fight for, when you have no desires, I submit that particular mental state is defined as clinical depression and not happiness. So when you say, hey, I want nothing, you're probably saying it because that's what you feel you're supposed to say. And there is a difference between being content with what you have and not wanting any improvement. So that is kind of a sticky concept, again, just because that's not what we are used to hearing, and that's not how we are used to thinking about this. So let's take this back to the relationship part. So what a normal relationship is not a relationship that has reached the point where you're perfectly happy to the point that you want nothing. So if you think about it, let's say you are in relationship with your boyfriend, you have, pretty good, rewarding, communication, everything's fine, you're happy with each other, you do things together. So it's a good relationship. And then he proposes and he says, hey, I want to marry you. We all agree is that it is an upgrade on a relationship. It means more commitment. It means, stronger desire on his side to be with you, even though there was nothing wrong with the relationship before. So you can be happier. Or let's say you've been married for a few years and, a few years into it, your husband says, hey, you know what? You can work if you want to work, but it's totally up to you. I mean, it's, you feel, it just helps you, gets you out of the house. You feel free, but I don't want you to contribute. I've got it. I want to take care of you 100%. So what you earn is up to you, but you're not contributing. I've got it. I want to take care of you. Yeah, that's definitely an honor. That's definitely something that signifies more, more feeling, more commitment. Or, a lot of people say, hey, before I had children, I had no idea what happiness was. Now I'm a totally new plateau. And what I want to emphasize is that, once we go on that new plateau, then we feel happier, but that doesn't mean we weren't happy before, because we were happy. We didn't know we had more coming, but once we do, then we grow and we go further. So when we talk about a normal relationship, what I don't want you guys to define it as kind of like an end goal, because it's a continuum in a sense, and it's really in the development rather than in any particular state, because it's never final. We can always be happy now and be happier tomorrow, and that does not somehow mean we were deceived today because we didn't know greater happiness exists. It's almost like, you can compare it as far as, the happiness part of it, in a sense, like, a Ferris wheel. Once you go up, that's a thrill. Once you're up there, it's kind of boring, until you go up again. So it's more of a forward motion that makes us happy than achieving any particular state. So that, I think, is an important part to define when we talk about relationship, is that it's a normal relationship. It's not only not perfect, but there's even no end stage at which you have achieved what you need to achieve. It's in moving more towards that. But so let's get to the conversation that I promised last time and define what this normal relationship is. We've talked a lot about what it isn't, so let's define what it is. Any ideas?
Maybe stress. I'd say stress should not be part of a normal relationship.
Well, in a sense, I'd say you're correct. But so let's say me and my husband have a fight and that stresses me out. So does that put my relationship in a different category where it's no longer normal?
No. And this is, really what we already talked about. A normal relationship doesn't mean perfect relationship with no fights. So I guess I don't really know then.
Laura, what do you think?
I would say if you're constantly under stress, this would not be normal relationship. Can constant versus occasional be the difference here?
Yeah, that's a very good observation. And so that is another thing that I do tend to make a distinction between occasional stress and chronic stress. So that definitely is down the right path here. But where would you draw this line between always under stress and occasional under stress? I mean, like once a week is normal, every day is constant, or how?
I would say it would be different for everyone. I guess it depends on your tolerance to stress. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it does, but then again, it kind of puts you back to the judgment. So if I say having stress, my tolerance to stress is high, and having stress every day is normal to me as long as I get a few minutes of reprieve here and there. It's not constant. Would I be correct?
I would definitely say every day is definitely constant.
Yeah. And I guess the answer here is that we really can't use stress or the number of fights or any other criteria that we've covered as a measurement of quality of relationship, because those lines are really hard to draw, and we need to define a normal relationship by other things rather than trying to quantify it in those kind of criteria. So let me ask you this. What is the purpose of being in a relationship? Like, why would you want to be in a relationship? Like money, marry for, good money? Is that criteria?
No, not to me
No.
personally. Yeah.
No, exactly. So if your friend would be telling you that, hey, I found this awesome guy, he is really rolling in money, he's got, he spends, this much on me, I'm looking at all these cars, all this money, and so I think I'm going to be in a good relationship. What would you be telling her?
She's probably not going to be happy.
Well, that's right. And, everybody would agree with, that's, very common. It's like in every other movie, right? What would be telling her that she needs instead of money?
Love, definitely.
Exactly. So if we think about our everyday perception, what we see, what we know, when we think of a relationship, this is the reason, is the relationship is about love. And so love is going to be defining a normal relationship, because that's what the essence of a relationship is. So I would say we can't, like we were talking earlier, we can't quantify a relationship by any external manifestations of what goes on in there. But what it boils down to is that you should be able to give love and receive love on a constant basis. I mean, we can't always, be in love. We can't be on cloud 9. But, as we look back and say, yeah, I am able to give love and I'm able to receive love. So that would define a relationship that's normal. If you're not able to love that person, you've got a problem. If you feel that person is not, he does not love you, then there is a problem. But let's consider a mother-daughter relationship. So both are giving love, both are receiving love. So what would be a difference between a romantic relationship and a mother-daughter relationship?
It's an interesting question. It's hard can't really pinpoint what the difference is, but definitely a big difference. I mean, they're two different types of relationships, no doubt about that.
Yep, I agree. There's this difference. It's just hard to define it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I would submit that the difference between like a mother-daughter relationship, because if you think about give and receive love and that normal relationship, that would apply to a wide range of relationships and even friendships, and that would still make them normal. But when we talk about a romantic relationship, there is one difference that I see. And say, if it's a work relationship, you're in a role, you're either a boss, and who's got, people under you that you're communicating, which love, is not really much, part of that. Or in a family if it's a mother and daughter, and it would fit under this definition, you still are in a role. So you're either a child and you need to, show a degree of respect and, even subordination in a sense, to your parent, or you're a parent and you have a degree of responsibility for your child, no matter how old they are. So there is always a role that is involved in other types of relationships. When we talk about a romantic relationship, it's not a role. It's just what you are. If you're playing a role, immediately it strikes a fake note. So you're trying, you're having an ulterior motive in the relationship. So with that in mind, what I would add to the definition of a normal romantic relationship is that you have to be able to be yourself, what you are. If you're not being able to be yourself, then there is something off there. And, just like with stress, there are degrees and there are instances to when we have to step away from that. So, for instance, if you, it's probably more from the guy's part to the girls, but, if he thinks, that I've gained 20 pounds and, I really look ugly in this dress, and, those his true feelings, but he holds them back because he doesn't want to, it's really not, really a deviation from being yourself versus not yourself and how perfectly honest you are. So, there are instances when, there are exceptions. But again, on the overall part, as you look at the big picture, are you able to be yourself and to, have your purpose in life and feel like you're being fulfilled and you're growing and you're receiving love for that to happen? And by you growing and you going forward in life, you're also giving love and supporting that person. So those are the dynamics which make the essence of a relationship, which we define as normal. And the reason for that is that's because that's the purpose. If it's fulfilling the purpose it's been created for, then, it falls in line with, everything else, the other manufacturer's instructions, so to say. If it's somehow destructive to the purpose it's been created for, then, we have a deviation from the way it was made to be, and then that would define something that is not quite normal. Which again, like I say, we can have struggles, we can have hurdles, it's nothing, it's we can't quantify it again by things. But as far as the big picture, that would be the definition. And so that definition would exclude such relationships as are codependent, for instance. And a codependent relationship is usually when there is like a drinking problem or, some kind of issues, when one person is changing their behavior in an attempt to control what other person does. So for instance, if the husband drinks, and so he uses that to go, he uses excuses to go get drunk when the wife didn't fix his dinner, when she is not nice enough, when she talks too much on the phone, when the house is not clean. So the woman ends up changing her behavior. She's going to clean the house, she's going to talk less on the phone, she's going to do all these things so that he wouldn't go do it. So that is a codependent relationship. You're changing what you're doing in an attempt to control what other person does, or the other way around. So in this particular setting, number one, you're not being yourself. You're changing everything you do for absolutely no reason except, that relationship. And pretty soon, love kind of fades out of that as well, because you're so busy with your list of things to do that you really lose a concept of what giving love really is. You're not doing it for that person, you're doing that because it's going to keep him from doing something else. So codependent relationship in that respect, raise a red flag of, starting to, go, a little bit away from the plumb line. Lack of forgiveness in a relationship would be a little, deviation again from, the, definition of normal, because, that's pretty self-explanatory. Is like, if somebody can't forgive you, how can they be giving you love? If you feel there's something stands between you and your partner and you can't forgive them for something, again, this barrier of giving and receiving love, immediately stands in your way. And the third thing that would define the relationship, which is not quite normal, is something that we're going to be talking about in this particular part of the program that other people who are watching this joined me for the sake of discussing, is a relationship X. And as you guys already know, who are here, because of this, it's a relationship between a person who is the personality type of a caretaker and a person whose personality type is what we generally term personality X, and for our purposes have been calling a wounded child for now. There are other definitions to that, which I will explain later. But so far, we're just defining it as a wounded child for now, or personality X. And it's a person who had, experienced some kind of, trauma, neglect, stress, to where they're basically like a black hole. They need a lot of caretaking. They want constant reinforcement, they want constant support, but they really don't have enough energy right now to give, because they are, like I said, it's been something traumatic. They're exhausted. They don't have the energy to show love. They just have enough to, support, keep, themselves together. So, that creates this relationship X, to where one person feels their calling is in giving and they want to take care because they're caretaker by their type, and the other person is on the receiving end and they can't get enough, and they just, like I say, they just suck it like a black hole. Everything comes in, nothing comes out. So even those people do care for each other and they may be a wonderful person, but this creates this nasty dynamic when you're not giving and receiving love more or less equally. When you're only giving it, you're not getting anything in return. And it, once it gets to 99-1, it's really bad. When it's somewhere in the middle and you take turns, that's different. But those type of relationships, even when it starts to be, about 70-30, is already kind of a red flag in terms of your relationship not being normal by definition. And so the reason we're talking about this, while we even started this conversation about normal versus abnormal, is that it's important to remember that. Because it's not your standard relationship. You cannot treat it as a standard normal relationship. It's different in that sense, and you need to handle it differently. Otherwise, it's going to have bad dynamics that will destroy both you and him and the relationship. So I'm going to conclude with that today. That's kind of the scope of our discussion, but that is something that we are going to be looking into as we go along. So this is a very important takeaway for you guys, is to remember that what makes up a normal relationship, and if you see the dynamics of what I term relationship X, that is something to take a note of and remember that those type of relationships are definite.